You never need seek God. You've heard that. But what have you been doing? If you re-listen to our first hour and then realize the degree that you haven't been able yet to attain that spiritual discernment, consciousness, then you can realize how you've unwittingly blocked the experience of God as your all-inclusive experience. Because you've been seeking greater experience in one way or another, more harmonious, peaceful, abundant, loving, truthful experience in one way or another. But you never need seek these things of experience. Why? Well, why does the ocean not need to seek water? Or wetness, or saltiness, or wave? Because it is. These are the very properties of the ocean already. The ocean's greater awareness doesn't make these things come into experience. They are experience already, but if the ocean's unaware of it, it cannot consciously experience. The experience it is. The experience you are as truth is fully happening at every breath of you. Think about that. The kingdom is fully happening as itself, which includes, let's underline this throughout, the all-inclusive experience, even conceptually. That is one of the many mansions. So, truthful experience as itself, as all-inclusive experience at any level, any mansion, is already fully happening as every breath of you, every step of you, at every step of your experience, as the utter fulfillment of omnipresence, all-inclusively witnessed, as every breath and step of you and me. Why, by degree, do we not experience that truth, therefore, that oneness, therefore, that completeness, therefore? Because by that degree we're still discerning materially instead of spiritually. But that doesn't make truth not happen. It makes your and my awareness devoid of the happening that's happening. If the ocean fell into some untruthful sense of identity and was now not consciously aware of its truthful identity, therefore not aware of wetness, saltiness, waves, magnitude, power, presence, the fullness of the ocean as the fullness of the ocean is at every drop of itself, then it may start seeking these things. And in that seeking, it hasn't realized that it already is. And therefore the seeking is untruthful. And you can't discover truth in untruthful seeking. How could that be possible? You can't discover math in untruthful math seeking. You can't discover 2 + 2 is 4 when your consciousness is being 2 + 2 is 3. You can't discover the 4 in the 3. That makes sense, doesn't it? So we cannot discover our truth already existent in or through or as untruthful identity, which is that identity of self which is still predominantly material. The mind is still in charge. Its discernment is material, not spiritual. And from that material discernment, we can never discover truth, never discover our truthful identity. So now, cast your mind back to what we heard at the very beginning of our first session. And that is that even with 1 minute of the actual experience of the kingdom, we never again could or would seek one single object, one single nameable good. And now realize that that kingdom is living as your experience. Capital E, but remember, all inclusive. This very moment. You do have oneness. This very moment. Your only actual awareness is already 100% spiritual this very moment, because there is no other omniscience, there is no other awareness. So whilst you look out and think you're discerning materially, actually you're not. There's no power anywhere, there's no ability anywhere or faculty anywhere in the whole of you that can discern materially. Isn't that interesting? It's a false sense. Well, nothing false is true. So what you discern as material awareness actually isn't. It is spiritual awareness, simply misidentified. So look out. Let's look at, for us who are here, these flowers. But everyone at home, look at anything in your room. And immediately the mind is detecting what it reports as something material, something finite, objectified. Something you can see, hear, taste, touch and smell. You see, there it is again. Anything we see, hear, taste, touch and smell is by definition material sense. And so not true. So look out and observe anything. Just accept that through the material sense, it certainly appears to be finite. It certainly has a name. We've named it as something or someone. And then we have idea about that name, that thing, that person. We think we know its character, its colour, its shape, its aroma, its nature. We think we know how long it will live. If it's a human being we're observing, actually this is very beautiful, isn't it? If it's a human being we're observing, then we think, oh, that person will probably live 80 years, 90 years, 100 years. If she or he is really healthy, maybe they'll live 110 years or something. If it's an animal, if it's a dog, that life will only live 13, 14, 15 years. If it's a cat, it'll only live 17, 18, 19 years. I think cats live a little bit longer than dogs. I actually don't know. If it's flowers, cut flowers in a vase, oh, they'll only live a few days, maybe 7 or 10 days. If we put some powder in that the florist gives us, maybe that'll lengthen their life for a day or 2 or 3 or 4. Now, in each of these cases, what are we actually observing? Life itself, eternal life, invariable itself. And yet the mind has judged, categorized, and labeled it, and because there is no unmanifest awareness, mind, consciousness, then that which we believe is that which we experience. And so we believe that flowers live that long, and dogs live that long, and cats live that long, and humans live that long. All right, well then there's our experience. If you want to know how terribly inaccurate and untruthful that is, if you go back to Victorian times, the average age was 40. That's what they believed. Now, what's changed other than belief in this short 100 years or so? What's changed? Nothing. The human body is still the human body. Oh, the mind will say, oh, well, we've dominated disease. We've become cleaner. We've rid our environment of germs. That's why we're living longer. Well, what are all those things other than belief? We've given power to germs, we've given power to cleanliness or dirtiness, and then we've attached belief to that power, and then attached reason to that belief, to that power, and now we have longer life. It's all temporal, none of it's truth at all. So, back to the story. Look at something in your room, or him or her in your room, and realize, just accept that the mind is reporting it, or him or her, as the mind wishes to. There it is. But now discern spiritually instead of materially or mentally. Which means realize that what this him or her or it actually is spirit. There is incorporeal awareness, incorporeal form of awareness. Begin to dissolve the rigid idea of what it is you're looking at. Begin to drop the name and the character, the nature, the idea, the opinion, the judgment, in favour of spiritual discernment. And we don't even have to analyse that. There's nothing to analyse because spirit is the all-inclusive oneness of truth. So just realising or beginning to have spiritual discernment is sufficient. No understanding of what spirit is necessary, is actually impossible, therefore unnecessary. What you are is spirit. You are the incorporeal, spiritual form being witnessed conceptually. You are spirit, you are truth, you are grace itself. You are omnipresence itself. You are infinity itself. You do not occupy space. A little bit of spatial awareness is within you, perhaps. This place of your awareness at this moment. There's some spatial awareness, perhaps. But your consciousness observing itself as this spiritual form does not occupy space because there is no space. This does not exist in time. A moment of time awareness may exist in it. This moment of our awareness that We could, if we wish, observe as happening at this time the clock reports. But it's not real, do you see that? This supposed time exists in it as our time of awareness, but this is not the truth. And so this that you're observing doesn't exist in anything called time. It doesn't occupy anything called space. It's literally infinity. It's the whole of infinity being observed as this moment of form. But infinite, eternal, omnipresent, the whole. The whole. You are observing as spiritually discerned consciousness now the whole of life. This little pocket of awareness, your being, is and contains and is the magnified experience of the whole of life. The macro is right here as this micro awareness. The whole of infinity, the whole of the macro, is literally contained in this micro pocket of awareness, this form of awareness, this form of spirit we're observing, we're being. The whole of life. The whole of love exists here. The whole wealth of infinity exists here. There's nothing outside of this very moment of awareness, because this moment is the whole. The only is the whole. The only anything you can be is always the whole of God. The whole of God is present and visible and tangible and manifest at and as every point of itself simultaneously. And that point is that point of awareness you or I am being this moment. This is spiritual discernment. Do you see how awareness has been taken away from the fixation on the form or the material sense of form into the magnified spiritual awareness of the whole of God existent right here as and in and through this very pocket of awareness we are being. That's spiritual discernment. Let's say that there are 3 stages which are really one awareness. But let's break this awareness into 3 stages right now for clarity. One is we look at what first to us seems like a material form or being. And we lift now into the awareness we've just heard. This form actually is spiritual form. And so we're dropping the idea of the material form with its name and nature and character, amount, and lifting into or merging into spiritual awareness as this form. The whole of spirit is here. The whole of infinity, eternity is here. The whole of God. The whole of consciousness is embodied in and as this little pocket of form I'm being, I'm aware of, I'm being consciousness of, or as. And so it's as if we've swapped material sense for spiritual sense. That's stage one. Now we linger in pure spiritual sense, so that the form we're looking at becomes a secondary. It's dropping from awareness. And our awareness is filled with and only interested in spirit. We've swapped one for the other, do you see? We've swapped the material for the spiritual. But we're still not in all-inclusive truth. Nevertheless, we linger in the pure spiritual for the moment. Become more and more interested in what spirit is. What is spiritual presence? Forget about the form. What is spiritual presence? We've heard some of what spiritual presence is just now. This presence actually does not exist in time or space. It actually is infinity itself, not finite, not objectified, not of any kind of describable form, weight, body. It's the infinity of spirit, the infinity of light, the infinity of grace, omnipresent. The whole of God, consciousness, omnipresent as this form of awareness, this pocket, this moment, whatever word you want to use, this aspect of awareness, beingness of awareness. I'm being aware, and this moment of being aware is 100% spirit, and besides that there is none else. And so you ponder spirit in this way. And in this way you've swapped material sense for spiritual sense, and you're now, what? You'll feel it, you're now 55, 60, 70, 80% or more, 90, 99% in spiritual awareness right now. By the degree that you've found yourself not at all thinking of the material form, but thinking spiritually. This stage 2, spiritual discernment, spiritual thinking, pondering, spiritual awareness, you stay with for as long as you would like, until you really feel it filling you, being the whole of you. You'll find that your pondering slows down. You're savouring this beautiful spiritual awareness. And in the spaciousness of your awareness, you feel peace beginning to well up. This is the kingdom that is always living the fullness of itself as you, now being detected by your senses. This is the peace you feel. The peace is the oneness that is you, the wholeness that is you. The peace is the demonstration, if you like. The peace is the healing, if you like. If you can catch this, you'll witness more and more and quicker healings, wholeness. And so you begin to diminish your awareness and let the awareness take over, which is the peace filling you. As the peace fills you, and you're using your sense of awareness very little now, if at all, then your attention now is 100% on the peace. I'll say this only to have it recorded, but now you've completely forgotten about the original form you started with. Of course, that's just brought it right back into consciousness. But now you understand, we've left entirely that form, and we've lifted into pure and beautiful, blissful, spiritual awareness, and that peace we feel happening within is the kingdom of truth. The whole of the kingdom of oneness is consciously being witnessed now as you. And all you have to do is be interested in it. Don't try to understand. Never, you know this now, try to get anything from the peace. Never wish for the peace to heal the body, prosper the business. Bring love. Reveal peace in the world. Never do that. But let the peace speak to you in its language, its terms. Let it reveal its self. experiencing the kingdom right now. And it is being interested. Jesus supposedly used the word seeking, but he certainly did not mean it in the way we have been seeking. He means be interested. Realize that this is the only. Therefore, seek this. Be interested. Desire this alone. Spiritually, we're not at all interested in the material sense. We're not trying to have the kingdom, heal, harmonize, pacify and prosper the material, because we now know that the material is nothing but false sense. Therefore, seeking this, seeking to learn the language of peace, not have peace interpret its language as your language, but for you, for me to seek, hear, experience the language of peace, spirit. By being silent, receptive, listening, doing nothing now but listening, learning, being open like a sponge for peace to fill. This is the quickest way for everyone to indeed experience that minute of being in or as the kingdom. This is what we heard in yesterday's IAT. This is what was meant in yesterday's IAT. We're hearing a more thorough explanation today. Now, keeping your awareness on this spiritual presence felt happening, become aware of how filled you are with spirit instead of matter. What is it, 55%? 60%? 70%? 80? 90? What is it? 98%? 99%? What is it? It's more than Don't let go of it now, but it's more than material awareness, isn't it? You're filled beautifully with spiritual awareness than you are material awareness. Aren't you? And this is like opening the curtains to the sun. This is it. You're there. You've opened the curtains. The process of swapping a dominant material awareness for a dominant spiritual awareness is exactly like the process of opening the curtains. Now, instead of a dominant darkness, we have a dominant light. If you can maintain this dominance of spiritual awareness as you go about your life, your hours, your days and evenings, if you can wake up in the morning and quickly lift right into predominantly spiritual awareness in exactly the way we've just done, exactly this process, if you like. There isn't actually any process, but it seems as if there is. And then maintain it. You will see the very presence of God right here, this hour, this day, as people. Not everyone, because your awareness isn't complete yet, nor is mine. But you will see a greater, tangible, tactile, practical presence of God being people, God being thing and place and condition and amount. You will see miracles. Out of nowhere comes life, love, evident to you, giving itself to you, blessing you. Out of nowhere comes abundance that you didn't have a minute ago. Out of nowhere. Out of nowhere comes vitality of body, energy, purpose, beauty. Out of nowhere your skin starts glowing, becomes more youthful, tight. Out of nowhere, you've done nothing but lifted or swapped material sense or awareness for spiritual, for actually what's happening as you and as all. And therefore, that actual is now more evident to you. Because consciousness is evidence. Consciousness is experience. Now, stage 3. And this I'm becoming more and more aware as the months roll on, has been maybe the greatest stumbling block for truth students. And that is, look back now at that form you started with. Look right at it, or her, or him. Not as anything separate, not as material awareness, but with and as this spiritual awareness that's now filling you and being the dominance of you. And what you're observing isn't and cannot possibly be the same as it was when we started. You are observing this spiritually discerned experience now. When we started, we had, by degree, each of us, perhaps a material sense, probably a material sense, and therefore that which was observed is of that material sense. Of course, consciousness is experience. Consciousness is that which I'm observing. Consciousness is evidence. Now, because we've swapped material sense for spiritual sense, truthful sense, as we observe that very same form, it now, by the degree that you haven't lost, and I know that most of us have lost that spiritual sense, that spiritual experience by a degree, and probably it's quite a large degree. Why? Because we haven't been used to realizing that the inner is the outer and the outer is the inner. So as soon as we affix our awareness back on that which seems to be material out there somewhere, gone is our spiritual experience. It's fallen right back down, hasn't it? Why? You see, there's the key. There's the whole key right there. Why has it? Because we've been living after all these years of even contemporary truth in a sense of inner versus outer. So right here, our message is this. Practice, practice, practice. And remember, there's actually no unembodied practice. So practice isn't like rehearsal before the big day, the big show. Practice is the embodiment. So we are practicing the presence of God. We're practicing now to bring the three stages into one. And they become one. We don't have to have the three stages soon, because we start off with spiritual discernment, because we're living for the most part in and of spiritual discernment. We're 51% or more in spiritual discernment already. Therefore the work is easy, or much easier. It doesn't take very few moments at all to bring our mind back into spiritual awareness if it's dropped. But practice now, every moment living spiritual discernment to the degree that you feel it filling you, living you, with your eyes closed if necessary, to begin with, even if that to begin with means this whole week or this whole month or this whole year. It doesn't make any difference. All of this practice is always going to be evidenced, embodied, because there's no unembodied consciousness. So as you're practicing being, which means feeling the very presence of spiritual presence, spiritual reality, then that's always going to be embodied as your experience. But the embodiment of it now depends on you living the all-inclusiveness of oneness, one presence. And so you look at every form, or you work with just one form to begin with, until you can do stage 3, which is then opening your eyes after you're filled with spirit and not losing that spiritual experience happening as you. You realize that you're observing the very fullness of the peace happening as you. Doesn't matter what the form is, you're looking at the very withinness of you, always. Wherever you look, there is I. There is the fullness of God, Spirit, being that which the mind thinks is a material form. Keep your mind stayed on God. One of us here and I were talking earlier this morning, and I said to her, forget about the inner and practice the awareness of spirit as the outer. Everywhere you observe, all day long and all night long, practice the spiritual discernment of that which appears to be out there. And it's exactly what we're doing in IAT. I am that, and besides me there is none else. It's exactly what the I Am Bank is there for. So that you can express, you can recognize and express the realization that all is spirit. And you're putting it out there. This is what you do. I am that. I am, I am, I am. And realize as you do that, every moment you're doing that, every minute you devote to insisting on spiritual discernment, every minute you work to swap material discernment for spiritual, that very activity of consciousness is like the activity of opening the curtains, which then reveals that which is, that which already is. The kingdom of God already is. Remove material awareness, and there is the kingdom of God. And this is how we remove material awareness. We swap material awareness for spiritual awareness until we feel ourselves predominantly filled with that spiritual awareness rather than material awareness. Now, if we will make this our not only daily work but hourly work, and not only hourly work but minute by minute work, if we will get up, if we will commit to ourselves that we will get up and not be untruthful but truthful, lift into truthful awareness right away, not allow the material to capture us, to kidnap us, to take ownership of us, but to insist on truthful identity, which is the all-inclusive truthful identity, then I can promise you you're going to have a wonderful day. I can promise you that more and more the kingdom of God is going to be visible and tangible, tactile and manifest, witnessed by you as serving you, giving you nothing but joy. You know, yesterday, as well as what I shared with you on IAT about what appeared as a discord, then suddenly and out of nowhere revealing itself as beautiful, beautiful, more than we ever expected, fulfillment. Not only that, but every step of our day was so very beautiful, including going off to lunch and meeting a waiter who was the most wonderful young man, a musician, and we got into conversation with him, and it was the most glorious, fulfilling conversation and discovery about what he was doing. And guess what? He turns out to be so much in truth. It was just a total joy for us to be there with him. He said the greatest thing about him being a musician is the love that he can give to his fans. Everything he wants to do is for the love of giving to his fans. It was the most beautiful exchange and hour of experience. Well, there is God giving to us fulfillment, joy, happiness, bliss, grace, giving of itself to us. And more you will witness the entirety of your world. Every step, every place, every corner you turn, you meet God, because there's nothing else. But even in material sense, there's nothing else but God. But because material sense is living I, we can't see the fullness of what's there as nothing but love and grace and joy and bliss. But as we lift now, as we insist on lifting into truthful identity, recognizing that everything everywhere is the oneness and the fullness of God, that is just the gift of love, the gift of grace, the gift of the fullness of infinity, rolling around in ecstasy everywhere we are as everything we are, then by the degree that we're able to maintain that spiritual awareness, there it is, as even what the mind may describe as a simple meeting with a waiter in a beautiful little restaurant. No. There was the divine appointment of the whole of love and the whole of grace and the whole of God, giving the fullness of itself to and as our experience and his. How many customers do you think he meets up with who are so interested in him and so appreciate and understand what he feels as this expression of his uniqueness, which happens to be music, that all he wants to do with is give. That's all he wants to do, give. How many people do you think he meets up with that recognize that and are able to talk to him about in that depth? And so it was fulfillment all around, of course. That's what God is. So more and more this is witnessed. And you see, in God there's no little or large. There's no magnificent miracle versus little miracle. Everything's a miracle. Every colour we witness, every fragrance, every activity, every little child, every adult, every moment, every step, every time we look at our love again, every time we look at our home again, every time we look at our neighbourhood, every time we look at a dollar. What is a dollar other than the whole of God offering itself to us? If we insist on finitizing God and saying, well, no, you're not really here, at least you're not here as much as I need you, you're here as just a little amount of God, called a dollar or whatever number of dollars we think we have today. If we insist on that, then that's our trouble. That's our problem. But the truth is that the whole of God is there. The whole of God is there as these flowers. The whole of God, not a finite number of flowers that will only live for a few days, but the whole of God that's the full manifest form of anything that we witness eternally. Rolling around in ecstasy at our beck and call for us to give and serve and share with. So let us commit every minute to truthful identity, then maintain it every hour of our day. Never seek anything at all but the experience, the discernment of God itself, never wanting God for any reason that we can describe, but only for the experience of it itself, and then leaving it up to it to reveal itself in all the wondrous ways and even miraculous ways that it is and it will, as your consciousness is being God. How can God reveal itself if we're not being God consciousness? How can truthful consciousness reveal itself if we're being untruthful consciousness? It's impossible. But spirit to spirit, you see, God to God. You catch that? Once you are spiritual consciousness, then spiritual consciousness is fully revealed as your consciousness. You catch that? Spirit to spirit, God to God, incorporeal to incorporeal, grace to grace, oneness to oneness. But the moment we are two-ness, trying to witness oneness in our two-ness, well, that's impossible. So let's commit. You are spirit and the whole of spirit, here and now, in all its oneness. You are that minute, and then you are eternal minutes. And then you are eternity. Minutes have dropped as well. You are that. Right here and now, you are that. You have the whole of God, which is all-inclusive. There's where we've fallen down, perhaps. All-inclusive experience. There is only infinity. There is only infinite form. There is only infinite presence. There is only the givingness of the whole of infinity to and as your experience for you to give and serve. There is only that as your truth, the all-inclusive truth of you. So let's commit to being spiritual thinking, awareness, pondering. Let's commit to be only interested in spirit. Let's seek only spirit. Let's keep ourselves open for only spirit. If we find ourselves with some apparent lack of anything that we can name, okay, it's perfectly okay. We've dropped into some material sense. I do it as well. Okay, what am I going to do? Sit in the corner and think of myself as a failure? No. I'm going to be so excited because I have another opportunity to realize I've slipped, and now I can rise. I can get rid of these veils easily, in exactly the way that we have heard today. Exactly that way. And by that way, I can witness this day the magic, the miracles of God everywhere as my experience. Everywhere. But I mustn't slip back into wanting more dollars or thinking I'm short of them. I mustn't slip back into wanting anything that I can name. As Joel so beautifully pointed out, do you ever think that Moses, standing right there by the Red Sea, backed up with all his people, and the warriors coming along to destroy them, or the armies coming along to destroy the whole race, do you think he ever thought of parting the Red Sea? No, he did not. He kept his awareness purely in the truth that only God is present here. He did not have himself. He did not have his people. He did not have the Red Sea. He did not have the sense of being trapped. And he did not have the sense of the army approaching and threatening. None of it. He, by definition, had, and if you read his story, he'll tell you, God as the only presence happening as his consciousness. He was living with spiritual discernment, spiritual awareness, spiritual reality. Only. Not to part the Red Sea, not to save his people and himself, not to avoid the army somehow. But God is the only presence, the only reality, spirit being the only presence, the only being, the only condition here. Then he witnesses what to material sense is a miracle. And let's face it, we could never in the mind ask God to part the sea. This is an impossibility. First of all, God doesn't have a sea that he could part. So it's no use asking for the parting of the sea. He was in God consciousness and then witnessed the parting of the obstacle, the parting of the problem, the dissolving of the problem. And there it was. And there is the way of it. And so as long as we stay in God consciousness, in spiritual discernment, so that our being is predominantly in and as and happening as and through all-inclusive spiritual discernment, we will infallibly witness miracle after miracle by the degree that we are able to attain and maintain spiritual consciousness. And don't ever categorize or measure what the mind thinks of as the miracle. Everywhere is the miracle. God is the miracle and God is omnipresent. Therefore, everything, everywhere is the miracle. So don't say, well, meeting a waiter and having such a beautiful conversation is a little miracle and the healing of my cancer is a big miracle. No, it's not. It's all the same miracle. And that's the miracle of God consciousness. And in God consciousness, nothing of God is hidden. Do you see why we're all here this weekend? Exploring nothing is hidden in the mind of God, in the consciousness of God, as the consciousness of God. Do you see that? Well, right now lunch isn't hidden, so let's go and have it. Thank you. We will be back at 3 p.m. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into our channel. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button below. It really helps us out. And why not share this video with your friends? Spread the word and help us reach more people. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss a new video from us. Thanks for watching and see you next time.